tell us a little bit about who you are for anybody who's listening, where
Yeah,
you
so
live, what your name is, all that.
I'm Rob Duncan. I grew up in Connecticut. I'm out here in Kansas City right now. I grew up, my dad's a plumber, so I kind of grew up around the trades. My
Right
other
on.
uncle, I have two uncles. One's a plumber and one is a landscaper. So I
Okay.
kind of blue collar family for sure. Um, Went to school to go into youth ministry actually.
Okay.
Studied the Bible and theology, and that was kind of my plan. And then I got out of school with all this debt and was like, well, this ain't cutting it.
Yeah.
So this is a plan B, but it's a plan B that I'm really enjoying, and I chose it for a reason.
Yeah.
I
So,
got about 3 years under my belt
okay,
now.
cool. Why electric and not plumbing?
I got covered in crap once.
Yeah.
That was all it took.
Yeah, that's a simple response, and that's all you. That's how I would feel too, man. No thanks.
Yep,
So,
not for me.
so did you finish college? You graduated and everything?
Yeah.
Did you just find that there weren't opportunities in youth ministry that you were looking for?
I think I wasn't intentional enough in pursuing it. I kind of, my home church offered me a position right after I finished college. So like an opportunity fell in my lap, and
Yeah.
they weren't super intentional about getting me to the next step, and I didn't have the life skills to kind of pursue it on my own at the time.
Yeah.
So I just kind of, it fell off, and then I moved to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan,
Yeah.
and there really was no opportunity there.
What brought you there?
Girl.
Okay. As they do,
My
as they
wife,
will. Your
we're
wife. All
coming
right.
up
Right
on
on.
three years now in
All right.
September.
Congrats. That's
So
awesome.
still figuring out that whole thing.
You will be for the rest of your life. That's how that goes. Yeah. And then you guys moved from Michigan to Kansas City.
Yeah.
All right. Just for opportunities?
For opportunities, yeah. And then my wife actually did a program through a ministry here
Okay.
like 7 years ago, and kind of always had it in her mind to come back.
Okay. Cool. So she had experienced Kansas City already and was like, that's where I want to be. Right on. How do you like it?
I like it a lot. Yeah, there's a ton of breweries, some climbing gyms. I do a lot of rock climbing for fun.
Oh, cool, man. All right.
Actually, young people, where I feel like where we were in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, it was like everyone was 40 and up.
Okay.
For whatever reason.
Sure. That's how it goes some places. Some places are like that. My daughter's going to school up in British Columbia, and she's on Vancouver Island, and she said it's all either college kids or everybody's 65 and over. So some places just attract specific types of folks. You got to find your place,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
we
cool.
Dabbled with the idea of California. We went and visited some friends for like a week and some change, and we're just like, no, this isn't it.
I wouldn't want to move to California, man. Nothing against California, but it seems to me like that place is a bit of a mess, man.
I mean, the whole world is kind of a bit of a mess.
Yeah, that's a real good point, Rob. The whole world.
We got trash islands in the ocean. I mean, that's a whole conversation. I don't know if I want to open that bag of worms. But...
Yeah, no, it's a real issue, man. I feel like it's hard to understand. It's like that's a big thing. Once you start thinking about the bigger picture problems in the world, it's hard to kind of take one step forward in your day-to-day life sometimes, because you're like, well, what the hell's the point? This is all crazy. Yeah. So how do you find, like, first of all, I guess if you're into the Bible and youth ministry and your family's all plumbers, it's interesting that why the electrical trade? Why not carpentry like Jesus?
Well, actually I was a carpenter for a little bit, and my body was like, nope, you can't do it.
Yeah,
right. I tweaked my back doing roofing, and that was kind of like I don't know. It hurt my pride. I was like, dang, I thought I was stronger than that. I don't know. it was, and I was 23 at the time. So I was like, I'm freaking too young for this.
Yeah.
But my body wasn't cooperating with framing, and I just don't have the patience.
Yeah.
And the peace of mind maybe for the finer trim work.
I'm with you, man. I'm not the guy. My father-in-law is a detailed carpenter. He makes beautiful furniture. And even listening to him talk about the process that he goes through. My dad's the same way. My dad's a body man. He works on cars, and just listening to them talk about the, like, for my father-in-law, he's got to make a jig for every cut he wants to make on a specific thing. So he has to build something just to make a specific cut for the thing he's building. I'm like, man, no, there's no way. I'm not interested. Yeah. I like solving things that are happening in real time. I think electricity gives you that opportunity to come in and be like, okay, what's going on here? Let's fix it.
But yeah, I think I more or less fell into it in a sense.
Okay.
So I was working for a larger company, and they had an electrical department, and they sent me to help out him one day, and I just did some basic like receptacle makeup. It was nothing difficult. Helped them out for a day on a rough-in and ran smokes, and
yeah,
I was like, I kind of like this, and I kind of got interested in just electricity in general.
Yeah.
And then that company, COVID came along, and I got laid off.
As it happens, yeah.
So then somebody at the church I was going to at the time knew somebody who was hiring, and he was he had his general contracting license and a master electrician's license. So I got to kind of do what I knew and try out more of the electricity thing.
Cool.
And it was through that I was like, yep, this is it. I like this.
Cool. Yeah. And I feel like you can always go into, like, the great thing about something like youth ministry or being a part of your church, that's always there. You know, your education in that realm will most likely come in super handy for you down the road. It's not something you got to rush into. That'll, you know what I mean? That'll always be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think you're doing a good thing by like picking up a trade and like making your living that way. And then, I don't know, like there's so much you could do as far as like speaking and, you know, especially with ministry or, you know, and, you know, encouraging kids that are in your religious community to, you know, consider the trades as an option, whatever the case may be. Lots of opportunity for you in the future, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's cool. And your wife is she's religious as well. You guys, did you meet in the church?
Actually, we met on a Christian dating app.
Okay. What's the name of the Christian dating app?
Oh, I don't even remember.
Okay. Because I would love to hear the name of some. I love the name. Like, I love dating apps like Grindr and
I know
Tinder.
Plenty of Fish is one.
Okay, Plenty of Fish. That's perfect.
But I don't think that was the one. It was like Cross Paths or something like trying to be new agey. And
that's right. I love it. I was hoping to hear a punny name, a Christian pun name for a dating app, you know. So you guys met on a dating app.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I think I set the like distance max to like 50 miles.
Okay.
And next thing I know, I'm talking to this girl in Wisconsin.
Okay.
And then I was flying out there to meet her, and I was like, what the heck? How did I get in Wisconsin? This is stupid.
Right, exactly. That's a long distance, man. From Connecticut?
Yeah, it was 1,200 miles or so. I don't remember. I'm not geographically inclined.
How to get past the 50-mile radius?
No idea.
No idea.
I think it was because she had her settings more open.
Okay, got it.
And I guess it disregarded mine.
Gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah.
The rest is history.
Yep.
Yeah. That's cool, man. What do your as an electrician, now you're about 3 years in, what are the things that you like most about the work you do? You do mostly residential?
Yeah.
Okay. What are some of your favorite things to do?
I think my favorite is when I do like a quick service call or to add something to someone's house and you get to see they're like, oh, this was everything I wanted. That wow factor when the customer is just so happy and so pleased, and this is going to add benefit to someone's life.
Yeah, that's cool.
I also find just a lot of value, and I'm mostly doing rough-ins nowadays. I'm getting kind of sick of them, but just the looking back and being like, wow, I wired this whole house.
Yeah, it's a cool feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
I did. I spent a couple hours making up, or I spent a couple days making up boxes this week. We're doing coming to the end of a rough-in phase on a whole home rewire of a 4-unit 200-year-old row home. It's a massive undertaking. We're getting
That's
real
the
close.
One with all the knob and tube.
Yeah, for sure. And so I spent a couple days consecutively just like tying in boxes and had a real reconnection with how much I absolutely love the tie-in process of anything, whether it's a panel or it's switches. I just loved
Yeah.
There's something mindless about it. There's something incredibly meditative about it. You could just put on music and just like lose yourself in the finite detail of making everything sit the way you want it to sit. There's
Yeah.
something about that that's just so, I don't, man, that feels good.
You're setting the precedent for the future of this house, essentially, as far as the electric goes. I mean, someone's going to come in, they're going to want to add something's not going to be working for whatever reason. The
Right.
drywaller is going to nick something.
That's right. That's
I
right.
rag on drywallers, but I'm impressed with their work overall. But
Yeah.
things go wrong, and your makeup, how you chose to run your wire, is going to decide the convenience of fixing something that might come along.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And you can always tell when you come in on the back end if something was wired by a professional or not, or not only just a professional, but somebody who gave a shit, right? So
Yeah,
you can
cares.
really tell. We did a job this week where we ran power to a pond, guys putting in like a some sort of a pump in his pond to kind of aerate the water, whatever. He had a bunch of algae in the pond. So anyway, it's like a 160-foot run. And then when we got into the barn, somebody had wired his barn already, and I had to give credit where it was due. It was done beautifully. And I made sure to let the client know. I was like, hey, whoever you had do this work did a great job. And he's like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, it looks wonderful. And because there's so many times where you go into a scenario and it's the opposite, where you have to be like, Jesus Christ, what am I going to find here? Like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like you see one thing and you're like, God damn it. What else am I going to find? But then when you come into a spot and you can tell that the person who put their hands on every element of it cared. They cared, because we all know you can half-ass an install. You can pull your conductors diagonally across a joist opening. It's fine. It doesn't change the effectiveness of the electrical circuitry. It doesn't make it less safe necessarily. I'm sure people could argue that. It's just a matter of craftsmanship. It's just taking that extra time to give a shit, to be like, no, I'm not going to just run this diagonally so I can save $3 on a foot of wire, whatever the case may be. It's like, so I always love that. I love coming across scenarios where you're like, yes, man, there's other people out here that care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose inspectors won't fail you for being sloppy, but it technically is in the code.
Yeah, you're right. You're stapling and you're spacing.
Workmanlike manner.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. But I mean, that's debatable.
Yeah.
You know, well, what's considered a workmanlike manner, and who's the inspector, right? We've got a team of inspectors here in downtown Frederick that are dynamite. These guys are amazing. Like, they're super thorough. You know, sometimes you'll have an inspector come and they'll just kind of look something over and be like, all right. And that's great too. But these inspectors, man, they get down, they grab their testers, they're testing things, they're tripping GFIs, they're asking questions. I love it. They know what they're doing. They know what they're looking for. And there's mutual respect given across the board, right? You're like, you respect them, they respect you, they get to know your work.
Yeah, I don't get to I haven't really gotten to interact with any inspectors around here, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of more of a cog in the machine right now.
Yeah, I got you. Yep. It's a good place to be too. Yeah, man.
Yeah,
repetition.
For now I'm happy being a soldier, being a field guy, and just learning as I go and kind of deciding what I want to do in the future as I go.
Yeah, what are your thoughts? What do you think you have planned for yourself?
Yeah, I don't know yet. Right now I'm studying for my journeyman test.
Cool.
Which has been starting to study has been good, but finding the information just to take this test was like way trickier than it needed to be.
Okay.
And like, there's multiple areas around here with different requirements.
Okay.
And most of the jurisdictions don't even have a journeyman license.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I had to find where it's being offered.
Okay. Is it a county offering? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm gonna get it just to say I've had that license, because I've heard stories of guys who went straight to their master's because their county didn't have a journeyman, and then they move and they won't let them get a master's license there because they never held a journeyman. And it's like,
yeah, it's silly. Yeah, it can be complicated. Maryland was doing county to county, and now the state has taken over the testing for journeyman and masters. Now in Maryland, you have to have an apprentice license. There's no test. You just have to apply for it. as an apprentice.
Okay.
So they're making these new, I like that. I mean, I think I did the same thing you did. And I took my journeyman's in a county that I didn't even necessarily work a lot in, because they were the only county offering it. And I wanted to take the test to prove to myself that I could pass that test.
Yeah, it's kind of that next step, that next,
Yeah.
milestone, and
Totally.
I'm excited to hit that and be successful.
Hell yeah. What are your
Hopefully, I
study
don't have to
materials?
take it twice. I just got Mike Holt's exam prep book, and I
Cool.
ordered his journeyman exam test with it.
Okay. Hell yeah.
And then I test.com. I
Yeah,
bought their tests.
yeah, I did the same thing.
And then there's a YouTube channel. I forget what it's called, but he has like a free 10-part exam prep course.
Sweet. That's awesome, man. Are you did you ever take any like classes as an electrician? Did you take any sort of trade school classes, or are you all just on the job and study material?
Mostly on the job, but I did do 2 semesters. I took a theory class, and then I took a class on residential wiring.
Cool.
That was mainly, they had it was print reading and just a lot of code.
Yeah, cool.
So those were cool things to learn. But the classes were twice a week, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And as much as I cared, as much as I was interested, I was dozing off in those classes.
Sure. Those are late nights. Our apprentice Daniel's about to start that. He's about to start 2 days a week, 6 to 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't have it in me. I know a lot of guys do it, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, I mean, look, you got to be able to get information out of something. And if you're in a space and you're taking the time and you're not absorbing what, there are other ways.
Yeah. Plus, it just felt really disrespectful dozing off in front of this teacher.
Yeah, man.
He understood. He wasn't like mad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're out there working all day.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. So what do you know what the test is, like what the design of the test is that you'll be taking, and how many questions, what your time frame is?
Yeah, so it's 80 questions. They give you 4 hours. It's all going to be like multiple choice on the computer. Something that I'm kind of stressing about is they don't let you bring any paper in. It's all like on the computer. And I just don't know how that system's going to work out, because I mean, I do all my calculations and whatnot, of course, on a scrap piece of paper, and I'm faster with it too. So it's like,
yeah, it'll slow you down. It was the same for my master's exam. The calculator they let us use was on the screen, and it definitely made it more challenging for sure. It was anyway, you'll overcome it. There, you'll be fine. 80 questions, 4 hours, probably handful of theory, and then probably like a scavenger hunt through the code book, I would imagine.
Yeah, they break it down.
Yeah.
I don't have that with me, but they literally have the test broken down. It's like 7% theory, 5% this, 12% is load calculations.
Yeah. Okay, great.
I think like 25% was like your scavenger hunt.
Yeah. Okay. How are you on load calculations?
I think I got the hang of it for the most part. I mean, I couldn't regurgitate it to you now, I don't think, from memory, but
sure, but just using like section 220, article 220.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, cool. All right, right on, man. Because that'll come in really handy for your masters too. That'll be like a big part of it. I mean, I don't know what it's like in Kansas City, but I think that my takeaway from the masters was that that's what they're really looking for, is like, can you safely size anything using this book, right? Yeah. That's cool, man.
Yeah, and then as far as like, I don't know, I've been playing with the idea of maybe checking out commercial.
Okay.
But I mean, I like residential, and I'm pretty satisfied with the work I'm doing.
Yeah.
It just kind of like, I'm playing with the idea of getting that experience.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. I think, look, I mean, 3 years in, about to get your journeyman's, try a different thing. And if you'll know for sure whether you like it or not. By trying it, it'll either be for you or it won't.
Yeah.
Commercial's fun. I like commercial too, because it's just like residential, where there are some things about it that you think are just better. I think that about commercial too. There are some things about commercial that I just like better. Like new tenant fit outs, like if somebody's built a mini mall type space, and each space has its own, they're gonna build to suite basically. I like those scenarios in commercial because, there are no people around. You're just in there in a space by yourself working, getting it done. I like that. But the thing about commercial that always is challenging is we live in this old ass town, and these old buildings, man, especially downtown here. There just been too many scenarios where you go in, the person who owns the building does not work at the person who owns the building is renting the retail space to some business. So there's already a disconnect between the people who own the property that you really need to do the work on and the people who are managing and maintaining the property. And the people who own it never really want to pay to get the things done right in these scenarios. And then the people who are working there, and then we find ourselves in this old town going into so many situations that are like, we had to trace out and find what was powering this 240 volt receptacle in a kitchen. And the kitchen was on like the bottom floor of this pretty big building. And the building spans like two buildings next to each other. And dude, it just was like going through this building, finding every wire way, opening it up. And it's just a menagerie of old splices and taps. And then you always find yourself in like historic switchgear, doing some sketchy shit just to get the job. I'm like, man, I don't, come on, man.
Probably working after 60 hack electrician handyman cheapos that.
Yeah. But you run into that in residential too, where you go into a house and it's like, the last 4 homeowners did the work themselves and you're finding buried junction boxes behind drywall. And so every bit of it has its ups and downs, but I think that your head's in the right place, because that experience, you never know. Maybe that's where you find yourself,
Yeah.
No harm in doing it. I feel like as an electrician too, you just like, there's no wrong choice, because the industry is so in need of you that like you can, if the commercial thing's not what you want, you can find another residential thing that you do like, or you could start your own thing,
Yeah. The sky's really the limit. I mean,
it really
you can always make a move and just to learn more.
Yeah, that's right. How do you see yourself? Are you at the point where you see yourself in the future, like imagining what your future looks like as an electrician, or maybe past electric, maybe getting back into youth ministry? How do they marry together? Do you imagine those things marrying together?
Not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I can definitely see myself starting my own small company.
Okay.
I mean, I guess my faith is kind of married to just the way I behave and the way I do my work. I think those go hand in hand.
Okay.
But I don't know if I see you doing anything past kind of like volunteer like stuff.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Did you feel like when you were in college and you were doing that, did you start to see in college that might not be the path for you? Or was it after college, it just was like there were opportunities?
Yeah, I think mainly it was after college, because kind of like, what's the word? What's the term I'm looking for here? I don't know. It just kind of fell off.
Yeah, sure. Well, you said earlier you felt like you didn't have the life skills at the time to pursue that sort of thing. What are the life skills that you think you were lacking at that time? And like, what have you done from then to now to work on, those life skills?
Yeah, kind of just like the ability to be introspective and figure out what you need to make those next steps.
Yeah.
And the ability to know how to ask, to know what questions to ask, to know who to ask, to kind of pursue that one-on-one, I guess, mentorship to get there. You always talk about like the sensei student relationship.
Yeah.
And I think as a student, I just didn't know how to gain in a truly helpful way from a master.
Okay. Do you feel like you've picked that skill up?
More or less. I mean, I'm always working on the personal stuff.
Yeah. Sure.
But I think I definitely know how to do it in the trades.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward in the trades. It's the whole point, right? It's like you have to learn from somebody. Right? Yeah. How has your faith and your life as a religious person, how has that shaped you and how you pursue your trade, the things you do?
Yeah, I think it's a driving force in doing everything to the best of my ability, because
Mm,
I'm not only reflecting myself in the trade, but hopefully I'm reflecting on other Christians that, this, we value quality
mm,
and we care about what we do
yeah,
and who we're doing it for.
yeah.
It's kind of like, it's not just a wire, it's not just a junction box, it's not just a panel. It's someone's going to live here, someone's
Mm,
going to use this building,
right.
and if I do this right, it's in a sense loving that person.
Yeah, sure. I agree with that. Yeah, I think that's something that I feel like residential in particular, you really get that sense, that feeling, right? Where you're like, man, I'm meeting these people in their home. They're letting me in their house. If it's something you're
Yeah.
coming in and they're already living there. But you're right. It is showing respect by doing the absolute best you can. You're respecting the trade. You're respecting
Yeah.
yourself. You're respecting the people. Yeah, I always feel that way too, man. I always want to be worthy of all of it. We're not the first electricians. There have been many before us.
Yeah.
All the engineers and philosophers that have kind of helped us understand what electricity is and where to take it, how to use it. And we're
Yeah.
representing them every time we put the tools on.
And then there's the aspect of just like general patience
Yeah.
and demeanor in
Yeah.
like stressful situations. I mean, I've seen guys lose it. I've seen hammers go through windows. It's like,
Yeah.
what? How did
Yeah.
it get there? But
Sure.
I feel like I have a much longer fuse. And
Okay.
when my fuse goes off, I feel like for whatever reason, there's an extra motivating factor for me to go get some space,
Yeah.
cool off,
Yeah. Those are
go to
life
the
skills.
Johnny,
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
because I
Those
don't
are
want to fly off the
great life
handle.
skills. Yeah. Right. You don't, especially in a person's house. We've all seen it. We've all worked with people who in a person's house have lost their shit. And you can't do that, man. It's a big no-no. It's a real big one. It's like, there's no coming back from that, really. So
Yeah.
that's good. I'm glad that helped. I'm glad that I try to find that too. I'm not a religious man, but I do look to every bit of example I can find for peace of mind and
Yeah.
tranquil. Try to calm myself. I try to stay calm because it can be hard. The work is hard. It's
Yeah.
frustrating as shit sometimes. Sometimes it's super frustrating, and some days you
Yeah.
just don't feel like doing it. Some days you're just like, man, not today. I just don't want to today. And you got to rise above it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm coming up on the kind of the finishing steps of this rough in, and I saved the 16-foot high entry fixture for last, of course. So I
Yep.
busted out the ladder and it's like, oh, why did I wait this long to do this?
Yeah, that's right. I know why you did, because it's a pain in the ass. I do the same thing.
Yep.
I'm like, let's do the pain in the ass stuff tomorrow.
Some jobs I do those right away, and
Yeah.
it's always such a relief. And then like most jobs, it seems like I never learned that lesson.
Yeah.
Like
You're
if
like,
you just do this first, you'll just love yourself so much more.
That's a good lesson. That is a good lesson. It's true, but it's hard to find that motivation to pull that big ladder out on the first job when there's so much
Yeah.
to do, right? You're like, I could just start roping in boxes. That's a lot easier. I don't have to get that big ass ladder out. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like now my like number one goal is to pull home runs when I first started a job, because I don't know what happened, but I cannot stand pulling home runs.
Oh, really?
It just drives me nuts. I used to
Does it
love
really?
doing it. I'd be like, I'll go to a job and pull home runs for 4 hours and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that's just based on the amount of time that you've spent recently just pulling home runs?
Probably.
Yeah, right on. Yeah.
And I
What
think there's
part?
an urgency to
Yeah.
like, I love making up the panels. I love this doing the service side. I love making up each box. I think those are the aspects I enjoy the most
Yeah.
about roughing in a house.
Yeah.
It's the pulling the wire that's like tedious.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all kind of tedious to an extent, but
Yeah, for sure. It totally is. Yeah, every little element has its monotony to it if you do it enough. Yeah, I feel the same way. Are there elements of a rough-in that you like more than others?
well, definitely panels.
Yeah, right on. Cool. I love laying out wiring. I like the home run process, or the even cutting holes, even getting your holes in your
Yeah.
studs and lining all that up and making it look nice and clean.
And laying out, kind of organizing each circuit individually. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
an enjoyable
It
aspect
is.
where,
There's something about it. It's like makes you feel good.
yeah, I mean, and all those steps are going to make your life easier or
Yeah.
harder.
Yeah.
I try to drill every hole that I'll need. I don't
Yeah.
want to get that drill out again.
I know. I'm with you. Something very defeating. We're doing this old project right now, and we saved our because it's a existing structure. It's not new construction. So plaster in the lab, walls and ceilings. A lot of the exterior walls of this home are just plaster on brick. So there's no internal framing.
Yikes.
It's a real bitch. And so we waited on the ceiling boxes because it's like you were saying, it's like that's going to be kind of a pain in the ass. And then the day we came in to do the ceiling boxes, we had already cut, so many holes, opened so many spots. That was already part of what we were doing. We got it all cleaned up. We're nice and clean now. And it's like, let's get these ceiling boxes in. And then we get up into the joist bay and it's like, oh, that joist bay is like 8 inches apart. And then none of our ceiling boxes are going to fit in here. And so we got to cut bay to bay, put in 2x4s and, put fan safe boxes in on the structural 2x4s that we put.
Sell them 4-inch wafers or something.
Right, exactly. I don't know. You always got to find a solution in these old homes because there's nothing standard. I don't know if they didn't have standards back then, but they didn't have them the way they have them now. Like the house I'm in right now is a little over 100 years old. The house we bought in Frederick, and doing my attic, like refinishing my attic, insulating it is a pain in the ass because the roof rafters, there's no equal measurement between any of them. Some of them are 28 inches across. Some of them are 14 inches across. It's like the insulation has to be completely like designed just for that space, or I've got to put 2x4s up in the rafters. And anyway, old houses are tricky.
Have you ever ran into balloon framing?
Yeah. Balloon framing is sometimes helpful.
That's helpful when you have to run a new home run from the second floor or something.
It's super helpful. Yeah. I've actually really enjoyed balloon framing because it's like, especially in an old house where you're like, man, this house is built like a tank. And then you get into the exterior wall and you're like, oh shit, it's balloon frame. So I can just pop this line on down.
That's a good way to describe old houses. They are tanks.
They're tanks, dude. They're monsters. And that's the beauty of them. Like if you own it, you get character, and you get the fact that this thing is not going anywhere, right? True 2x4 is built real well. But if you've got to work on them, they are a pain in the ass. They're exhausting and filthy, and there's lead paint, and there's walls. So the walls in this house we're working on now, the plaster in the walls is at some points, the plaster is almost 2 inches thick. So it just, the method that they used to use for adhering plaster is they put the lath in and then they just smear it on there. And in some cases, they're continuing to add plaster to level it and make it look right. And sometimes you get part of the wall that's 3/4 of an inch thick. Sometimes you get 1/2 inch, and sometimes not only the plaster being 1.5 inches, 2 inches, but then you've got the lath on top of it. So old work round boxes, no, they're not going to happen because those wings on those things are not long enough to grab. It's just stuff like that. So you've got with old houses, and then like if you're quoting work on an old house, that's tricky because you can lose your ass because if you're thinking of it like new construction, you're like, oh, okay, we'll do these boxes, we'll do this. Okay, that should take us this much time. Sometimes in old houses, like for example, with these ceiling boxes I was just talking about, it took me like 2 hours just for the first box to get. It's like you're solving this. It's like that's ridiculous. If you're bidding old work is tricky too. These old homes, so.
Yeah, because you could easily double your time.
But then you might not get the job, right? If you hit somebody with like, they're doing a renovation and you hit them with a $85,000, it's gonna be that much.
And do you account for like all the drill bits and saws and whatever material you ate through?
We try to, but then when you get into those scenarios, it's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine it. It's hard to like I think part of it is that I'm 8 years in. I think that's a big part of it, right? While my business partner Josh is 17 years in, so I defer to him on big decisions, right? Because he's had that, double my experience. But even still, it's hard to account for like how many carbide tip wood biting sawzall blades are we going to run through? Because before you know it, you just use 20 of them and they're toast now. And it's like, those were not cheap. And so old houses can be very, very challenging.
Yeah, I think that's probably the scariest element of going into business one day, that for me, like the bidding element, the pricing things right. Because you can screw yourself. Yeah. And then next thing you know, you lost money on a project. It
happens. And so, and there are different takes on that too. I know electricians who, so it depends. It's all about how you communicate. I think it's all about how you communicate even in your contract. So we're learning as we go, man, like through every single time that we lose money, through every time that we do something that didn't work out, we try to make it a policy. We try to go, okay, all right, so I didn't say this one thing in the contract, and now the client knows that, and they're holding me to the fact that I didn't say one thing that now they know. Maybe they know or they don't, but you feel like they know they're going to get away with something for free here, and I'm going to lose money. The way we see it is we call it tuition. We say sometimes you got to pay to learn. And when we pay to learn, because we're not going to put it on the client if it's something that we just didn't know better to do or not. Yeah. And that's our motto, where we try to lead with integrity. So if we say something and we don't consider something, and you've got us, you got us. But now that's a policy. Now that's in our contract, and it's in our terms of service. And the next person we work for, when they read our verbiage on our contract, they're going to see, okay, well, they do this, they do that. They don't do this, they don't do that. And so it's just a constant process of dialing it in. Yeah. You're going to lose.
Yeah, I have a tendency, definitely. Well, I like this tendency, but to see the best in people and to be very optimistic. And I feel like you get, in the residential world, at least, I feel like you get two people. You get the person that's like, like, I respect you, I'll pay you what you're worth. Like, you had to do this thing you weren't anticipating, whatever, I'll pay for it. And then you have the person that just wants to be as cheap as possible.
Yep. It's true. Yeah. And they're both clients, and they both deserve a good install. And it's frustrating that they it's hard when somebody's, that's what I mean though, when I say like, you've got to draw lines in the sand as far as how you communicate. So like, if you tell somebody, we do this is the way we do it, this is the cost for doing it, but in your wording you say, all unforeseen things in this manner, whatever, we have to be added on, as long as you are clear, then at least you can if something's extra, you say, well, if we're going to add this, it's extra, we can't do that for free. And that all makes sense. Yeah. But like you're saying, some people will try to get you and be like, well, you didn't say that. Well, that's not, well, you said it was this price. And it's like, okay, you're right, I did. So how do I word that so that somebody in the future cannot be like, well, you didn't say that? It's like, well, we did say that. And so, and it's just a matter of like getting better at what you do. And I always feel like like you said, trying to be optimistic and find the best in people. I like to do that too. And so it just comes down to, what was my mistake in that, as opposed to being like, this guy's an asshole, I don't need to, you know what I mean? Instead of doing that, just going, okay, maybe that's true, but what did I do that could have been done better that would have changed that? Because if that guy's an asshole, I can't do anything about that. I'm not going to, I'm not going to change them. But if it's something I did, I can change it. And so I always try to look at that. It's like, what could we do better? Because I can change what I didn't do better. I can't change the fact that guy's cheap or not nice or what. That's not going anywhere.
That's so good though. I mean, that's also like a good leadership quality. Yeah. As well. It's, if a mistake is made or you overlook something, instead of playing this blame game. No. And that could be a double-edged sword. You can't put the whole world on your shoulders, but putting things on your shoulders so that you learn from those events. That's a
Well, that's the whole point. Because either way you'll learn. Even if you play the blame game, ideally you'll learn on the back end. Well, that, I could have done better or whatever. Even if your mode is to blame or whatever, it's like there's a lesson in there for sure. But you're right. It is if you own something, if you own it, then you have the power to. I feel that way about everything. Like when in your own life, it's like if you take responsibility for something, that means you have the power to change it. If something else is somebody else's fault, you're powerless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you into musicals at all?
I'm not a huge musicals fan. I've watched a lot of musicals, but I'm not like into them. What musical are
Have
you
you
thinking?
seen Hamilton by any chance?
I've listened to Hamilton. My nieces were like fanatics, and I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah. There's a line in one of the songs, the character's Aaron Burr singing. I can't think of the name of the song, but
Sure.
there's a line in it where he says, "I am the one thing in life I can control."
That's right. Yeah.
And that's so true. I mean, you don't have power over someone else. You don't have power over the tree that landed on your car yesterday. My Jeep got stolen out of the front of my house 2 weeks ago. I got it back, but I didn't have any power over that.
Yeah.
And that was a moment. That was the day that I lost. I lost the game because I let that going into that morning. My mindset was awful.
Yeah.
I was just curse the world. Just let me die. Like not that to that extent, but I was in a bad mood, and I could have been more intentional in controlling my mindset there.
But there's a good lesson there, right? The lesson is like, yeah, okay. When those things happen, what's your response, right? Your response is the most important part. We talk about that a lot on the show too. It's like, I try to talk about my failures because I like failing. I mean, I hate it. I hate when I don't do something right because it makes me feel like I suck at this. But I like failing because I learn something every single time. And it also means I'm trying. Like if you're not trying, you won't fail. So you'll be safe. But if you're going to go try something, you're going to screw it up. And so just be honest with yourself and then look at what could be improved. That's all it is a great opportunity to learn something. Yeah, man.
Yeah. The first guy I worked with in the electric field was like, so just, he was not a fun man to work for. I mean, blowing up at your mistakes.
Yeah.
I remember just constantly being teased about being slow. I was like, I've been doing this for 2 months. What do you want from me? Like kind of that. And I think that was one of the first times I reached out to you. Actually, I was like, man, I'm just getting like destroyed mentally here.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I stuck with it. And I kind of like, as soon as I got out of that employment situation and started working with people that were like, yeah, the speed will come. Focus on this, focus on that.
Yeah.
And I think eventually something clicked where I kind of hit that just send it mentality.
Yeah.
It's like, so what if I screw up? I'll just fix it.
Correct. That's 100%, man. That's it. Be honest about your mistake and fix it. That's right. Because the truth is, man, you're just going to keep making mistakes. That's just the truth. That's just the reality of life. Like you're just a flawed ass human. And we talk about it all the time, the human element. Like you could be a black belt, you could be a 6-degree black belt, and you know that shit inside and out, and you're about to go fight in a tournament, and you're the most qualified person to win this tournament, but you didn't sleep very well the night before, you didn't eat well, you're having a fight with your fucking partner, and you just and you lose, and you're like, I'm better than all these people. Why'd I lose? Well, because there are all of these variables that in a perfect world, human beings would be able to just control all of it and be great. But it isn't a perfect world, and we all fail all the time, and we all make mistakes all the time. And that's the most beautiful thing, because it's like, okay, well, there's a glaring example of what I need to do better. There's my work. I love knowing what I have to do, right? It's always hard it's harder when you don't know what you have to fix. Like that's the hardest, is like, I don't know what to fix. But when you make a mistake, it's very obvious what needs to get better. And I think that's a blessing.
Yeah, that's something I'm enjoying about the company I work for now.
Good.
How big I want to say there's like 60 or so employees.
It's pretty big.
But they hold you pretty accountable to your work. They'll let you know every mistake you made. Good. And even give you tips to improve.
Awesome. That's wonderful.
So yeah, it's very cool being at kind of a growth oriented
Yeah.
company like that.
Well, you got to have that mindset, man, because some folks, you can't give them critiques, or they'll get pissed if you try to tell them a better way to do something or make a suggestion,
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I
that's
think
no way
that
to
was
grow.
something that I was able to learn how to do
Yeah.
the last few years. It's
Yeah.
just be able to take critique, even if it's given in a really unhealthy, nasty way.
Right. Yeah. I think that was one of the benefits to come into the trades at 35 for me. Like I did a bunch of things before. So like coming into it, all I knew was that I didn't know anything. And so, I led with that. It's like, well, look, I'm not here to tell you I know anything. I don't know anything. So let me start there and let's go. And I think that kind of took maybe if you start really young and you go through, I'm just making this up, but, and then by the time you're 35, you've been doing it 17 years, right? Might be harder to have that open mind, because it's like, well, I've been doing this my whole life, but coming to it a little bit later, at least I'm always open to suggestion. It's like, well, how would you do it? How do you, show me a better way, please. I'd be happy to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got into the trades at like, what, 22?
Yeah. That's great.
Did carpentry for a couple of years. I think even at 22, I felt really far behind. And then when I was like, okay, I'm settled in electric, I was like, man, I got to put the turbojets on.
Yeah. How old are you now?
27.
27. You're very young.
I'm a youngin. I'm just a cub out here.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
But I still feel like I'm behind.
Yeah, I think that's a normal feeling. I think that's what people who are I think motivated people or focus driven people always feel like they're behind. I think so.
Yeah.
There was a quote I saw from some coach. I want to say it was Purdue's football coach, something like that. But he said something like, man, I'm going to mess it up, but it was something along those lines of like, lazy people don't do anything and think they need to be given more, but people who work their asses off kill themselves and always worry that they're not doing enough. It's like there's that double-edged sword there. So it just means that if you feel like you're behind, it just means you're probably pretty driven. Because there's no such thing as behind. There's only is in comparison to other people, but you're not other people. Yeah, you're you. So you're not behind anything. You're just right where you're at. You're exactly where you need to be.
Yeah, and I think there's benefits to social media. Like for instance, the community of electricians on Instagram. That's a great thing. But there's also the highlight reels that you see, and you don't see the fact that somebody started something later than maybe they should have, and
right.
Now they got to play catch up. You just see, hey, I made it to success.
Yeah, right, sure.
Why aren't you here?
Yeah, that's true. It can feel that way for sure. I think social media definitely has that. I don't know. I feel like all that stuff's just an illusion, man. It's all none of that stuff is super relevant or important, I think, to me, because it's like it's just about what you're passionate about. Like just be in love with what you're doing, and it doesn't matter what point in the process you're at. Embrace that space in the process, and that's where you are. You're going to have a little more experience than some, and you're not going to have as much experience as others, and that's where that's the spot you're at. There's no fast track.
Yeah, just keep doing you.
Yeah, just keep doing you. That's right. Just keep doing you. Don't. Yeah. That's hard to do though. I think we as humans do that a lot, man. It's hard not to look across the aisle and be like, well, fuck, man, what's that? How the hell's that guy so successful? But that's just it's not important for you. What's important for you is to be involved in something that makes you feel completed as a person. And it doesn't matter where you're at along the journey. Just enjoy that where you're at there.
Yeah.
Yeah. One day at a time. Success comes, just like you said, speed comes with time, right? It does. It's like if you just do something and it's hard at first because you're slow at first because it's hard, you're learning it. The more times you do it and the more it gets to be repetition, before you know it, you're real fast at it. And you're like, oh shit, that just happened. There's no forcing it. You can't force that speed. Yeah. Right? You can force it, but it will be garbage work. In order for it to be both accurate, well done, and fast. It just takes, I tell our apprentice Daniel all the time, it's like, it just takes time. The difference between you and me is just that it's just years. It's just a few years of you just keep on this track and then you'll be there. You can't speed that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you shouldn't want to. That's the whole point. It's like, that's why when you see somebody who's been doing it like 40 years, you're like, holy shit, been doing this 40 years. That's crazy. My dad's been a body man for 45 years. It's like, damn, dude, you're like a dinosaur. You know?
Yeah, I think my dad's been doing plumbing for almost 40 years.
It's wild, isn't it?
Up there.
Yeah, it's wild. And to just imagine like what you understand now and your ability to go in and assess a situation. Imagine what that's going to be like in another 37 years for you.
Yeah. I remember being amazed at, like, me and my dad, for instance, if I was working for him, we'd walk into a house, he'd be like, well, this pipe's there, that, like, do you have X-ray vision?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We're above this room. There's this room above us. Like, I'm like, how do you know that? Well, I've been on this floor plan 80 times.
Yeah.
There's 80 of these.
Yeah, that's right.
But shoot, now I'm able to do that, not to his level probably, but I can walk into a house. I know what that bay's doing.
That's right.
Without even seeing. So that's one aspect of traceable progress that
absolutely,
which there always is. I think it's important to take the time to evaluate where you are versus where you were.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
I think that's a healthy comparison.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great way to say that, Rob. I like that a lot, because you should be comparing yourself to you where you were before as opposed to other people where you are now, right? That's because you're not other people. You're you. And I think the trades are wonderful for that, because they like you said, they offer you could look at it. You can physically look at it and be like, that's way better than it used to be. I'm way better at that now. It just takes time and practice. That's all. That's cool, man. I like those perspectives a lot. What kind of things are you guys experiencing as far as well, before I ask you that question, I wanted to ask you now, that because we're kind of on this topic, our question of the week this week was kind of based around like advice. What's the best advice you've ever gotten from somebody? Did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I had a few, I think.
Yeah.
I had to write some down because I forget a lot of things. And I was like, if I don't write this down, when Doug asks me, I'm not going to know.
Yeah.
But I think like the number one is to be flexible.
Okay.
You can either adapt around the changing environment around you, or you can let the changing environment bend you over, for lack of better terms.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, you've got to be able to adapt to each scenario.
You do.
And
it's
even
so true.
In just houses. Yeah, I've wired several models multiple times. Every model has a different layout slightly with the framing and the way the laminates will sit, where I can drill, where I can't drill.
Yeah.
So just like being able to make those adjustments as you need to.
Okay. So it's more that, and that's more a mental game than anything. So your mental flexibility, like the ability to go, okay, instead of being like angry about it or like frustrated.
Yeah.
Shit, this isn't right. This isn't the way it's like, okay, here we are. That's great advice. Because that carries over to everything.
When I moved to this company about 6 months ago.
Okay.
I've been in a van for about 6 weeks.
Okay.
I think this is my sixth solo rough-in.
Awesome, man.
Just bugged them about getting me on a finish because I'm getting a little burnt out on the rough-ins. But the guy I was first with, I mean, it would seem like one little thing would go wrong and his day would just be demolished.
Yeah.
I remember we were doing a basement remodel, or it was an unfinished basement that they were finally finishing, and whoever roughed it in originally ran the wire for all the keyless fixtures in a way that we had to kind of remove them and rerun them.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, he was like, I would never run this like this. Like, you got to plan for future expansion. I can't believe they did this. And that was his focus for like 2 hours.
Yeah. He just was lost in it.
I was like, dude, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Let's just fix it.
And he was so grumpy. I wasn't going to say nothing because I didn't want to be on the receiving end of his. I was just like, well, I'm just going to do my thing over here. You can have fun being grumpy.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, your mind is a crazy place. That's a big thing. Like your mind will, if you let it, it'll drag you through the mud. You ever catch yourself just like being in a negative cycle of fucking thoughts?
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
ridiculous.
I got three fingers pointing back at me when I
Yeah,
tell
dude,
that story.
it's crazy. Your mind is a crazy place, man. It's a good practice to try to think about your brain as not you, or your mind is not you, and it's this other thing that's like, you know what I mean? It's like this computer that's like you need, but it's not. You have to like be different from it, because if you're always just if you're always just your mind, you're lost in it. And so if your mind is angry, you're angry. And sometimes
Yeah.
I like to imagine my brain as a VR set that I can take off and go, okay. Because when the VR set is insane, like say I've got like crazy negative thoughts going in my head, if I can take that off, I can at least see it for what it is, which is just a bunch of fucking thoughts that are
Yeah.
probably being propagated by a negative feeling I'm feeling, or some frustration, or maybe that human element's coming in where I just am having a bad day. But if I could take that VR set off for just a second and see it for just a bunch of thoughts, it's like, okay, all right, there's a little bit of space there. Let me change the way I'm fucking thinking,
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that when I sleep too. If I as a business owner, and as an electrician, it's not just a business owner, but there's so many times where you'll know the project that's coming up, or maybe you just did a project and you've got to fix something or whatever. Man, I swear, when I roll over at night and just make a slight adjustment in bed, there are so many times where my brain is like, "Oh, you're up. Let's real quick solve that problem. Let's solve that problem." It's like, and I have to tell it like, "Shut up. Not tomorrow. We'll solve it tomorrow, brain. It ain't happening." Because I'll be up all night. I might as well just get up at 2 a.m. and just start working. Because you know what I mean? You've got to be able to turn that shit on and off, because your mind will take over. Oh, I might have lost you there for a sec. Where are we at? Time-wise. On him. That is out of there. Rob, you still there? I might have lost you. Let's see here. Participants. Okay, there we go. Let's get you back in here, Rob. So, There we go. Check, check, one, check, two. Let's see if Rob comes on in. There he is. Beautiful. Right.
Well, that's embarrassing.
No, dude, it's not. It happens a lot. These
Do you edit them out?
yeah, it's seamless. Yeah, it's just a seamless little edit. No big deal. It's that's
okay,
the beauty.
cool.
That's the beauty of post production is it'll be like it never happened.
Apparently, sitting in my AC van, the dash was getting too hot.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So you said be flexible. That's a big lesson for sure. Were there any other words of wisdom that you've picked up along the way that you wanted to share?
Let me grab that notebook because, like I said, if it's not in front of me, I take so many notes while I'm running these jobs. It's stupid.
I do the same. My notes.
I should save them.
I use my phone. I use the notes app on my phone and try to keep track of things that way.
Yeah.
That way, I've always got it with me. I do prefer pen and paper. I prefer it for sure. There's something about it. I don't know if it's just the way I was brought up that way, but the phone's just always in my pocket, so it does make it nice.
True.
Yeah. So, what are any other words of advice that you picked up along the way?
I have 5 written down. I'm trying to figure out at least the top 3. I don't know.
Okay.
Unless we got time for all 5.
I mean, yeah, just say whatever you want.
But I think the second one is no one cares about what you're doing except you.
That's good advice. Yeah.
For the most part, I mean, I'll use side work as an example.
Okay.
No one's ever going to look at my side work.
Yeah.
I can splice together some BS on a side job that, no one's going to ever see that.
Yeah. But you'll see.
Or
it.
even I'll know about it, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Or like the example of, I've seen guys complaining to other trades that, about what they had to do. The plumber doesn't care that you had to go crawl in an attic and fish a wire. Like, he's a plumber. Did you do it well? That's all that matters. Did you do it well and did you do it right?
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody cares. That's a really great. I think that's what we should be telling children these days, because kids think everything needs to be like I don't know, verified or somehow like I can't think of the word I'm trying to use, but it's like, no, it's okay to not be super important. It's okay to not, like, you're right. Nobody gives a shit. And I think that when you learn that lesson in reality too, I think a lot of us go around life imagining that everybody's looking at us, or like, oh, what would people think? Oh, well, if I dress like this, people will this, or if I cut my hair this way, people would, or if I do this thing, people, and maybe, but for the most part, you're right. Nobody gives a shit. Everybody's so hyper-focused on themselves. That's the only thing people are thinking about. And once you realize that, it kind of takes the pressure off, because it's like, well, nobody cares.
Yeah. And I think that was part of what helped me kind of transition into that just send it mentality.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be right. Sure, if I make a mistake, I have to fix it. But nobody's paying attention to me dropping my ladder from a 25-foot, dropping my drill off of a 25-foot extension ladder. Or I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a real life example, not that work isn't real life.
Well, I think what you're saying too, for when I hear that, is that sometimes Josh quoted this week. It was like, he had a quote that was like, perfectionism is procrastination masked as craftsmanship, or something like that, where it's like, so often you will just not do something because you're like, well, I'm not going to do that perfect. But like you're saying, just send it. And sometimes you just have to make a decision and go. And so many of us struggle with that sort of shit, where it's like, what if it's not right? Well, what if I put that light there and that's not where they want the light? Well, what if I do a 3-gang switch box as opposed to a 2-gang with a double top? There's all these things that obviously you can discuss with the client, but sometimes you just got to fucking go. You're on a time frame, and it's just make the move. And if it's not right, fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great words of wisdom for sure. I like it, man. I was one of them that really changed my life, I think, was I think when I think back on that, you know, is there was this guy that is a bit of a business mentor to me. He's a local guy that I met back in the day when I was managing a farm, and we just kind of hit it off. He's this guy, like, I'm always fascinated by people who know how to make a living in ways that I've just never even imagined, right? Like anytime I meet somebody and they're independently wealthy, or they own 3 companies, and I'm always like, wait, slow down. What are you doing? How do you do that? Because no, you know, I'm curious. I'd love to know. Not that I necessarily want to do what they do, but I'm like, who is this person? And so
I feel like some people just have like this innate ability, like
yeah,
they just look a direction and money appear. Like, I don't know, but
yeah,
they're just really good at going for it.
I think so. I think you're right about that. I think some people have a natural inclination to just do that sort of stuff. I think obviously it takes work and education and whatnot, but and like you were saying earlier, sometimes you're at a part on a path, and somebody else is maybe further down the road. And so it's not that they have some sort of inclination that makes them better at it, but maybe they've just been doing it for maybe they were raised in a household where their parents were entrepreneurs, and they just were taught to think outside of the normal standard like that. And so I'm always collecting people like that. That's, you know, part of what this podcast is about too, is like, what can I learn? And this guy told me years ago when I was talking to him about business, he broke it down real easy and just said, sell what you know. Because I was spending all this time trying to think about, like, what am I going to do in my life? Like, what's my plan? Where do I see myself? I had ideas and had done a bunch of things already, but he made it so simple by just saying, sell what you know. Because what that does is that changes the structure in your mind that tells you, okay, I need to get a job. I got to go. And that don't get me wrong. When you're young, yes, you got to go get a job. And you've got to develop the skills first. You got to get an education, develop the skills, whatever the case may be. But once you have those, once you know how to market, or you know how to manage a place, or you've got a skill set like a trade, just go sell it. You can, it really can be that easy. Where you're like, I know how to do a thing and people need that thing, and I like doing it. And so I am going to make a business and sell that to people. And that's kind of, the trades are a great example of that, because the skill set is like this hard thing that you can look at. Well, they've got this skill, I need that skill. But even if it's something that, isn't so obvious, sometimes you meet people and they've got some business where they're a life coach or there's something, and you're just like, what is that? Like, they just have something that they recognize as valuable, and they offer it, and enough people buy it. And so that kind of changed the way that I looked at my approach to everything I did. Was just like, okay, well, I like that a lot. Why don't I sell what I know? And that could mean anything. So that was a piece of advice business-wise that really I take with me everywhere I go. And it's a big reason that I started this, we started this company, because it was just like, well, yeah, I mean, I could either go work for somebody and they could do that for me, or I could just sell the skills myself.
Yeah.
There's more to it, but it's like, and for me, since we've done this, the thing that I think has changed in my life based on that information, that advice has been, I'm still an electrician. I still go do electrical work. I still really love electrical work, and I get to do all this, basically the same kind of jobs I was doing before. But there's just more flexibility in my life. That's it. There's just more flexibility in my life. Some days are longer. Some things are more stressful sometimes, because there is no buffer between you and the pissed off client. If there's a pissed off client, you're the one who gets it. You've got to assume the responsibility, eat the shit, and fix the thing, and that's fine. But I don't know, man. The flexibility is wonderful.
Yeah, I think that was I reached out to you a while ago just to talk about kind of why you went into business, and I was thinking about whether or not maybe I want to do that in the future, and you just made it so simple. You were like, well, if it fits your life, do it. Like,
Kinda.
Yeah, I think something I've been learning listening to your show and you talking about your business is this idea of basically shaping what you do to fit your life.
Yeah. Yep. It doesn't have to be how anybody else does it. It does not have to be how anybody else does it. You do not have to have an electric company that has 10 trucks on the road, 20 trucks on the road, a shop, a facility, front office staff. You can actually, and that's great, but you don't have to. It doesn't have to be that way. And a lot of people do it that. A lot of people run small, one person shows and they make their living and do it that. It's just about what I think, we've talked about this on the show before too, that whole, like, what do you want to be when you grow up thing? I think the question should be like, who do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want your life? What do you want your life to be like? What do you want to live near water? Do you want to spend most of your days outside? As opposed to like, I want to be a lawyer. And then like you go through all this school and you pay all this money and you get this education. And then you're like, well, shit, man, I'm in this office fucking 7 days a week. Is the money worth it? Another piece of advice I got growing up was from my dad. And he said, and it's a cliche saying, but he's like, do what you love and money will follow. And I agree. I think that he's right to an extent. Like, I think that some things, obviously, you'll make more money doing. But what he's saying is you can either do something for money. But I think that when you do that, you find yourself trapped in a world where the money is the thing that you need. And you've set yourself in this space where this amount of money provides your lifestyle. And whether you're happy or not is irrelevant, because you have put yourself in this thing where the money's the paramount thing. But if you do what you love, you might not make as much money, but you will find money. If what you love is valuable to people, you'll find money's there. So it's almost like this balance of like, where does your happiness lie in response to your lifestyle? What's important to you? Is a big house and is driving a brand new Tesla SUV important, or a BMW or something? If it is, that's great too. Go get that. But that shit's just not important to me.
Yeah. And I think that like the pursuit of money mentality can just be very harmful.
Yeah.
No,
I'm not interested. Money, like even talking about money, I'm not interested. I don't care. Like, I had a boss tell me when I was young, a guy that I was working for told me, he's like, you were the most not about money person I've ever met in my life. Like, I just don't like money. To me, gives me the things I need. I need money. I like it because it provides me with my life. We all need it. It's capitalism. We need money, but it's not the thing I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking like, oh, money I'm not Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob. I'm thinking like, ooh, I get to have fun doing something I love and crafting my own life for myself. And that's the thing that gets me going. And, obviously that's different from what other people get them going. But if I can wake up in the morning and be excited about what I'm about to do, shit, man, and make a living doing it. Sweet. I'm in. Yeah. Fuck everything else. Kinda. I mean, and it's like in my life as I get older, I want to be around my family more. I love gardening. Like today, we're going to go, I just got a dehydrator. We got our fig tree is like we got like we're probably going to have a couple hundred figs from this one tree this year. It's bananas.
That's pretty cool.
It's way cool. So we're going to be dehydrating a bunch of figs, and it's hot sauce season. So I'm like, every Saturday I get a fire going in my backyard and I cook up my hot peppers outside, make my sauce this time. So I love that. There's so much about life that I want to be a part of. And I don't necessarily want to be in an office 7 days a week just so that I can have a big house in a specific neighborhood. It's just not for me. And if that's for you, I'm not insulting that. That's great. It's just not my style. It's just not my style.
Yeah.
I'd prefer to just chill and enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, if I came into a large sum of money, I wouldn't complain, but
yeah, man, I'm not turning it down. I'm not saying
but it's just not make my life easier, but it's not like it's not the end all be all. I mean, there's the old cliche, money can't buy happiness, blah, blah, blah. But it can't. If you're making a crap ton of money and you hate what you do, you're unhappy.
Yeah. Well, happiness is a decision you make. It really is a decision you make. And there's no way to buy a decision that you make. So it's been proven time and time again. I mean, look at what happens to people when they win the lottery. lot of people fall apart because it doesn't solve your problems. Money does not solve your problems. It pays your bills and it provides you your life. But it won't make you happy. Your mentality, your mindset, the way you approach your life is what makes you happy. Your beliefs, your values, the people you love, that makes you happy. Yeah, man. In my opinion, I don't know. There might be some people out there right now laughing and being like, haha, I'm on a yacht, bitch. My life's amazing. And they're probably right.
Yeah.
I could be way wrong, but that's how it feels for me.
Yeah.
Not saying I don't want to boat someday. Maybe I do want to boat someday. We'll see how it goes. My boat would be like a canoe though. That'd be more my style.
Yeah, I enjoy canoes.
Yep. Fishing, kayaking, canoeing. I just like I also feel more comfortable, and it's probably because I was born and raised in a poor community, but I feel more comfortable in environments where there are real people. Like I feel kind of uncomfortable in I think most people do, in environments where you don't feel like these are your people. And I feel like I didn't come from money. And so anytime I'm in an environment where I gotta wear a suit and a tie or something, I can't wait to get out of it. I can't wait to not be in that situation. It's like, all right, let's get this over with. Cause I want to go back to putting a t-shirt and some shorts on. And
you don't have one of those tuxedo t-shirts?
I need to get one. I don't have one. I need one. Yeah. Are there things that you feel like words of wisdom or tips or anything that you feel like keys to success that any apprentice should hear? Like if you're talking directly to somebody who's just getting started, they don't know shit, what would you say? What are your
I've been kind of hashing that out today, because I just found out come Monday I'm gonna have a helper.
Right on. That's exciting.
He has a little bit of a background in solar.
Okay.
But he's basically green is what I've been told.
Okay.
I'm like, I mean, I think I'm in a good humble place where I'm like, I don't really feel super qualified to train, but like I'm excited for the challenge and I'm excited from the growth that will bring.
Yeah, good.
But man, I think the biggest, I'm fiddling with this piece of wood here. Sorry.
You're all right.
Shoot, yeah, that's a really good question.
It is.
What did I need to hear?
Yeah, what did you need to hear when you came in? Because I think that when people are just getting started, they're nervous, right? They're not sure. They don't know what to expect. And it doesn't have to be some piece of advice that's like big or anything. It could just be like, be on time.
Yeah.
Show up with a good attitude,
I think just like keep moving.
That's good.
Nobody's going to want to see you sitting in a corner because you didn't want to ask what to do next.
Yeah.
Like just ask what do I need to do next?
That's right. Yeah. Get off your phone. Yeah.
Ask questions. It's going to be, especially the first few months, it's going to be a freaking fire hose of information. Ask questions. You got to get on, do your own learning. You got to get on we have an access of YouTube with millions and millions of people putting out content, millions and millions of articles online. Yeah. You need to be intentional with teaching yourself.
That's awesome. That's great advice. I love that. It's true. I feel like that's the kind of stuff that's hard to teach people, like that desire to know more, the desire to go home at the end of the day when you just worked all day, but you just didn't quite grasp something, and the desire to go home and get online and be like, okay, what can I look up that will help me understand that better?
Yeah. I feel like I go through like phases of that.
Yeah.
I feel like when I first started, I was so excited to learn and watching videos every day, taking notes and reading. And then, you kind of lull out, and then something lights the fire again. And
that's
now
life.
The journeyman test is lighting that fire for me.
That's good, dude. Hell yeah. I'm excited for you. Do you have a date on it?
Yeah, November 2nd.
Right on. Hell
so,
yes.
I think I gave myself enough time to study. I think the classes I took gave me a really good foundation.
Cool. You'll do great.
Commence the study. But yeah, I'm not too nervous. And it's like worst thing that happens, I have to take it a second time.
Yep. And that's sometimes not the worst thing. Sometimes that's the best move. Because I experienced that with my master's. It was like, you know what? The second time through, I felt better. I like was more comfortable with it. I knew what to expect. I was like, I had spent another 30 days diving into commercial calculations and was like, I'm ready. The first time I took it, I wasn't sure if I felt ready. The second time I took it, I was like, well, if I don't pass, it's not because I'm not ready. I feel like I could pass this test. So
Yeah.
sometimes that's all you need is a little bit more time.
I think I saw the test I'm taking has like a 36% pass rate.
You got that, man.
Go ahead.
That's you got that. I think the Masters, what did we hear? Josh heard something like 20 something percent pass rate on the Masters exam. Hey man, that's why it's cool to do it, because you're overcoming something that most folks struggle with. And so it's like, I think that holding yourself accountable, that exam, any electrical exam, any trade exam that you put yourself into, you're just holding yourself accountable to where you are in your journey. You're testing yourself. You're saying, where am I? What do I really know? What is going to surprise me about this test? What don't I know? Those are the real questions. Cause it's like, what you know, but sometimes, especially with that code book, sometimes you're just like, shit, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Cause it's a dense ass book,
It's a very dense book.
It's a very dense book for sure. But it's good. It's like, the difference between somebody who I think really excels at something and somebody who stays on a plateau is continuing to find ways to reignite that fire. Like you're saying, like it's that the long game in life is tricky, man, because it's easy to be motivated when you start something. It's easy to find that inspiration and be like, I'm going to be so good at this. And then add 3 years to that, add 4 years to that. Like you're saying, you find yourself like, man, I haven't looked at a YouTube video in 2 years. But right. I mean, it's just
2 more years of videos.
it's human nature. And so like, you have to continue to re-stoke the fire. You have to continue in your life and everything you do. You just got to keep on flipping the wood around and add more logs to it and be like, well, because it's you, like you said, nobody cares. Nobody's following you behind you going, hey, are you still doing that? Now, I think it's valuable. And you seem like you're doing just that, where you're reaching out to people in the world to have people who hold you accountable. I do the same thing. I have multiple friends where we keep each other on track. If I know I've got a big thing coming up, I will involve my accountability friends and we'll talk, and they do the same to me. Hey man, I got to work on this thing. Could you just check in on me next week? Make sure I'm keeping it. Sure. Of course. But like you said earlier too, like those life skills that you pick up along the way that show you how to foster that apprentice master relationship. Sometimes it's not just the master's job to come over and be like, hey, how can I help you learn today? Sometimes you got to be the one to be like, yeah, I really am struggling with this. I need more practice with this. Can you check in on me next week and make sure I'm actually getting that shit done? You got to ask.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was kind of what I was thinking about this morning, as far as me being in the position of training. Like I want to be patient. I want to be encouraging, but I also want to be able to talk about mistakes.
Yeah, sure. And make them. You're going to make them in front of this person.
Yeah.
That's
I think that was something I was already planning on telling him. Like, you're going to watch me fuck up.
Yeah. You should tell him that, because I think people come in, and it's what I told Daniel. We told him when he first started working. It's like, look, man, we just started this business. So you are going to just watch us fall on our faces. It's going to happen. It's not our intention. It's not our goal. It's not what we want to do. It's just the reality. And so it'll humble us. It'll help you see that we're just people too. Because you're just a dude that's like trying to share information. Nothing more.
Yeah.
But it'll,
seems like Daniel's in a good spot though.
He is. He's a good kid. He just picked up a motorcycle. I think he's going to swing by today, and I'm going to get to check it out. He's a good kid, man. He's a lot of fun to hang out with. He's got a good head on his shoulders. Good sense of humor. He's a good.
Plus, starting out with guys who care about seem at least portrayed on the podcast.
That's funny. We actually don't give a shit.
I'm sure you do. But yeah, I mean, starting out, the guys I worked with, they didn't give a crap if I learned or not. I had to pull teeth to learn stuff,
Yeah. I think he's in a good spot for that too. I was lucky enough to start with a guy who really, really cares about what he does. So I got to glean that from him, but not everybody does. So your helper is going to be lucky in that respect too,
Yeah.
and you're lucky because when you teach somebody something that you already know, you're going to find out that you don't know it as well as you think you do, because when you have to put it into words, I to this day, Daniel and I were looking at switches yesterday. We were going through this old house, and there's probably every configuration of switches in this home, from dead end 3-ways to you name it. And so I got a real chance to kind of walk through with him, and we just looked at every box with our cables coming in before we stripped anything out or tied them in. It's like, okay, we got 5 cables in this box, and we've got our writing on them. This one says power in, this one's power out, this one's your switch light, and it's let's stand back and then give him a chance. What would you do? When you look at this, what do you see? What starts happening in your mind, right? He's almost a year in now. So we're at that point where I can ask him those questions. What do you think when you see this? But when it comes to me describing it, sometimes it can be hard to find the words. You're like trying to think about like, well, hold on, how do I say this? Or like I always find that when I'm excited, and I do this on the show a lot, I'm sure people call me on it all the time, is like, I just say things a little bit wrong. Like you're describing something, and instead of outlet, you say switch, or switch, you say, there's all these little ways that like, all this information that you've got to somehow get together to say it to this person. I think it was an Einstein quote that was like, a master of something should be able to describe it in a way that a 5-year-old can understand it. Something like that. And it's like, and I don't know where I stand on like my agreement with that statement, but I see what he's saying is it's like, if you really, really, really know how to do something, you can break it down in a way that's palatable and digestible. So that'll be a good practice for you.
Yeah.
It'll make you better.
I think that's one of the aspects I'm looking forward to, because it's got to push my knowledge. If this kid cares and asks good questions, which I hope he does.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna find the things that you need to learn more, because he's gonna ask you questions and be like, well, what is this? And you're gonna be like, honestly, man, I don't know. Let's find out.
It's hard to put things into words, though. I was trying to explain a switch loop to someone, and I ended up saying screw it and drawing it for him, because I couldn't figure out how to put it into words effectively. Hey,
man. Sometimes that's the best way too. I'm a very visual learner, so when people draw things for me, it's super helpful.
Okay.
Some it's true. It's I've mentioned this guy on the podcast before, but we had an older guy that would work with us, and he would draw things on drywall. He would like draw delta triangles to help us understand high legs and how transformers work. But he would always draw. I've had multiple people that I've worked with when they're trying to explain something. When you're explaining something to somebody and you can see that they're starting to lose grasp on where you're at, and then you just gotta stop, grab a piece of cardboard or paper and be like, here's how it works. Let me draw, because sometimes a diagram's the way. Yeah, man. You think you're going to get back into work today, or are you going to cut out?
I was trying to get this one pain in the butt circuit done, and I'm like 60% there. I'm like, it's this entry circuit, and the way the framing is, it's just I have to take a roundabout way to get to the certain switch box.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to try to get that done and put myself in a good position on Monday to get done with this one.
Good thing.
Plus, I feel like it's awkward to get this helper on a job that's almost done, because it's like, what do I even have them do?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
but I'll figure it out.
I'm sure will, man. There's no perfect scenario, right?
I was joking the other day with my wife. It was like, I just need a candle lit under my ass 24/7.
Yeah.
That motivates me really well.
Yeah, an actual literal physical candle.
Yeah. When I moved down here, I came here like 3 months before my wife moved, and it was basically I stayed with a friend, and I had to find a job and a place to live, and I had 2 months to do it. And I never moved faster in my life. I need to find a way to replicate that in my everyday life.
Yeah, the pressure.
I'm a terrible procrastinator.
Okay. Yeah, it's that pressure. You got when do you find that you do better like at the very, like if you're studying for a test, that deadline gives you that fire.
That deadline gives me the motivation.
I think that's great. Setting a deadline, it's if you tend to procrastinate, it's okay. you've just got to figure out your trick for getting yourself through that, right? It's all there is. I mean, everybody's different in the way that they approach stuff. It's okay to be a procrastinator. I know procrastinators that get a lot done. They just set deadlines. It's like, well, if I set a deadline, then I got to get it done. You know, whatever
it's on the calendar.
It's on the calendar. That's right. Yeah.
You'll die if you don't fulfill it.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I procrastination is not something that I tend to do too much. I'm a bit neurotic about everything. From like, I don't even like seeing that I have an unread email on my, you know what I mean? I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
So I try to stay up, but then my anxiety stems from there. So people who procrastinate, I think their anxiety stems from the fact that they're waiting till the last minute, or my anxiety just stems from the fact that everything is not always perfect. And
Yeah.
we've all got something. Well, cool, man. Well, Rob, I totally appreciate you reaching out and wanting to be on the show, man. We've been chatting online for a couple of years now. I'm glad we got a chance to face.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's cool.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, of course, man. And best of luck with the new guy. When does that start?
Monday.
Right on. Yeah. How old is he?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I just know that he's fairly green and has some experience in solar.
Cool. All right. Cool, man. Well, sometimes that's fun. Sometimes it's nice to have. It's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it's nice to have help, and then sometimes you're like, man, I don't know what to make this guy do. But you'll figure it out.
Yeah. I'll just have him stud guard on Monday.
There you go. That's not bad. Gotta learn. So you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, brother, have a great rest of the day and a good weekend, man. I'll get this episode up on Monday morning.
Okay.
Right on, brother. And stay in touch.
All right. You too.
Have a good day.